proposition speaker to conclude the proposition's case.
Ladies and gentlemen, the first thing the opposition did when they came up into this debate was to say that we painted the war on drugs as not extreme. The attack of a war of drugs, of a paramilitary group going against a state is not extreme, that they would have DEA agents. At the same time later on, they said these paramilitary groups raped people. These paramilitary groups had control over the population. So how can they say that this war that they're going to have is not going to be violent, will not lead to people getting killed if these things are so weak? They can only say that these state agents or DEA agents are so weak as to be ineffective. In this case, their policy is not working, or so strong, in which the case that the strength or violence of the action is so great that they will lead to collateral damage. I'm going to talk about two things in my speech. The first thing I'm going to talk about is how we address the drug problem on both sides and how we fix drug cartels. And the second thing I'm going to talk about is about the idea of proportionality and last resort, the principal case on our side. So first, on the idea of where do we best protect drug cartels, we were very clear on our side about the three reasons as to why it is very hard for these foreign states to get drug cartels. We talked about the social services. We talked about information. We talked about militarization begetting militarization. They never clashed the idea when we told you that the only time these drug cartels start having these guns is when they are threatened. The only time they start shooting people is when they are threatened by a foreign state that is hunting them down. In the instance when we are not cracking them down, why will they even have drugs? They never answered that on their first two speakers. These are all reasons as to why on their side these things will work. The only response to us was this. Now that you have an international government, this allows for shared intelligence. Well, firstly, that's not true. What type of information can you get on our side, on your side, that the US knows, but none of the people who are within that city know? He never talked about the shared information they're getting on their side. But secondly, even if you have shared information, that war is still going to be violent. People are still going to die. Why is it that if you have shared information, that you won't have things like collateral damage? But we assume there even from our first speaker, even if you attack them, even if you end up destroying one drug cartel, even if you end up killing Pablo Escobar, they will pop up again. In Colombia, when the United States killed Pablo Escobar, other drug cartels popped up. That's why there's second season in Netflix. No, thank you. So we tell you right now. In fact, Colombia up to now is still enraged by drug wars. So he can't tell us that the drug problem in Colombia was fixed the moment Pablo Escobar was killed. The only other response he said to this was, well, if prices are going to rise, we're just going to stop them. He can't just say that prices are going to stop rising. The fact that there is a shortage of supply means that there is a greater incentive for now other drug cartels to pop up and buy drugs. Before we move on, yeah.
Rather than explaining economics 101, tell us, why would you not take down Pablo Escobar, who is the most organized individual, and later take down individuals who are decentralized?
Because other alternatives work better. Because things like what we told you, decriminalization, which means in states like Portugal, you have people that no longer are addicted to drugs because they have been rehabilitated, means that you cut the income from these sorts of drug cartels. If they have no source of income, then they won't be there anymore. Clearly, their side has been the strategy used by Colombia, and it has not been working. Decriminalization is the winning case because it shows you how these things have worked if you end up the income. The other thing they'd like to tell us on this thing is that they want to give us a semblance of justice. Now people will look at the US and say, look, these people are saving us. At least we have justice. Let me tell you why on our side, the state is a better functioning alternative. They talked about an alternative authority. These poor people plagued by socioeconomic factors who can only turn to the drug cartel as an authority. But does that really make sense? If on their side, these governments are hunting them down, telling them that anyone who uses drugs will go to jail, anyone who supplies drugs will go to jail, then yes, on their side, drug cartels are the only alternative. Because drug cartels are not bringing you to jail. Drug cartels are not saying they're going to lock you up for 30 years. It is only on our side. When you have decriminalization, no thank you. When people are not afraid to talk to the government about information, are not afraid to talk to the government and tell them about these drug cartels, are not afraid to go to the government and ask for rehabilitation. Only no thank you on their side. When they stop threatening people on the threat of either death or jail, can people go to them? We gave you the example of the poppy farms in Thailand. Only when Thaksin Shinawatra was able to give people an alternative by not bringing them to jail, but telling them that they could go to farms instead, that they had other means of livelihood, did people cooperate with the Thailand government? Not when they cracked them down and started attacking them. Next, they said they want to fight cartels with fighting cartels. We gave you no thank you in terms of rehabilitations, how we cut their income supply. So this the idea of where do we best treat drug cartels? We were very clear from our first speaker. Killing people, violence does not work. Providing an alternative when the state does not threaten you, cutting their income by rehabilitating people, that works. So next, on my second issue, on whether or not this is a principle that we are fighting for. What did we tell you on our side? We said drugs are a problem, but this is not a big enough problem to wage a war on. Before we move on, yeah.
Would you rather, in the worst case, go to jail and be alive, or wake up every single morning knowing this might be your last day?
It happens on your side when people are afraid of death. If the government is with guns shooting at the other drug cartel. On our side, when the government is not going after anybody, why will the drug cartel randomly start killing people? That is another thing they have not proved on their side. So in proportionality, we told you that sure, drugs are a problem, but it's not a big enough problem to wage a war on. So we won't sugarcoat things. Drug addiction is a pretty bad problem. But the much larger problem is the war on drugs. Collateral damage. In the Philippines, hundreds of deaths of children from 4-year-olds. But even if there were no collateral damage, the threat of jail, threatening to jail innocent farmers, even though they did not decide to do this, addicted drug users, is a harm in itself. So let's compare the harms on both sides. On their side, the harms are massive. 30 years in jail for a drug addiction. Instances of death possible from collateral damage. On our side, you only have addiction where you're forced to buy drugs. But even if it were not the case that this is about drugs, we think that even if it were not the case that this was about the worst case, we think we solved the war on drugs better on our side because of the stuff I told you a while ago. But lastly, what they failed to respond to on their side was this idea of demonization. People who are innocent are going to be killed on their side. Why? Because on their side, they create a culture of death. Violence in these places are so strong. This was brought to you by my second proposition speaker. The only thing they said was it's like stopping domestic abuse. But you won't kill wives, but you won't want to kill husbands and wives. In the same way, we don't think you should start killing drug users and drug pushers. The other thing he said is, it's Duterte fighting Filipinos. But the DEA in this is far more abusive. Because the fact they're fighting in a foreign country means there's no accountability on their side because it's outside of that country's existence. That's why we think on our side, not only a principle level, but on pragmatic level, we fix the war on drugs, but even if they fix the war on drugs, killing people should never be an option. We are very proud to propose.
I thank the third proposition speaker, and I would like to call on the third opposition speaker to conclude the opposition's case.
Testing.
we don't think proposition will win this debate. It's very simple. Notice that all of their arguments are premised in countries like Portugal, in Philippines, where the state is functioning, where there has not been international action on drug enforcement on any violent level. However, the problem and the only place where international action was taken was in Colombia, where opposition debated, and which is our context of this debate. We think that their entire case is based on governments that have been doing well, on governments that can survive, in a context where you can have individuals trusting the state and not be killed for it. We think unless they engage into our context and show why individuals automatically demand the international community's help in the most extreme violent manner before every other means is true, they cannot stand with their context for this debate. Before I move into the questions, let's look at why they did not engage properly in this debate. Number one, a large chunk of their rebuttals are consistent of examples with no analysis. I'll flesh that later in my clashes. No, thank you. Second, they have no analysis as to show why the very first response in every country whenever there is a drug problem is to call the international community and tell them to go nuts with their guns and military, bringing in full force. We think they have not been able to prove why that is the first thing they do when they could maybe provide jobs or control the drug peddling, as opposed to a situation where you need to employ violence. We don't think they proved that alternatives have failed. No, thank you. They claim it has failed. We showed you why they only call the international community when they cannot regulate it by themselves. Moreover, they also rule out, no thank you, the last resort, like they said in their first speech, when they need the last resort. We've shown you why you need the last resort, they rule it out. We don't think that is good. But finally, no thank you, their main burden in this debate was to show why you solve the problem of drug infestation and the problems related to drug infestation. We think they already in this debate have conceded principally that they want to decriminalize drugs. They're in failing their major burden in this debate. If not, they have not shown us how they solve the problem of drug cartels. But moreover, the final clarification is that they constantly misconstrue our analysis of how the international community can help. We think A, they are more accountable. Because it has failed in the past does not mean they're going to constantly keep failing in the future. Because the state of accountability has changed under our world and in the status quo, something they never engaged to. Second, tactics have failed in the past, therefore they will never work in present. We think they did work in present when it comes to ISIS. They may not have worked with Pablo Escobar, but it has worked with ISIS, so it might work in future. Third, we think, no thank you, we think that there is more experience for these individuals, which they never essentially talk about. That's the intel we talk about. You can have experience of greater military, greater organization. These are things local forces always lack. Therefore, our alternative is much better. We think they never engaged in this context. Therefore, they must concede that people are dependent on these drug cartels in both worlds and that the international community has a legitimate way to change this. Moving into a few areas and issues of debate. No, thank you. The first on decriminalization. We think they will principally lose this debate when they concede to it. We have fleshed out several harms in my second speaker's speech. The only argument against this was that maybe it's a problem, but it's not a big enough problem. If it's not a big enough problem, why is it banned almost everywhere in the entire world? It's because it ruins your societies. It allows for more violence, no thank you. It denies development and recovery. See, the bigger problem is, they have already conceded that in places where there is a lot of war and a lot of violence, people have already died and the society is broken. What they do is that you now allow drugs to be used by everybody within the society that needs the most chance of recovery. Therefore, even in their best case scenario, they never ensure that you actually allow the state to recover under their world. Because cartels control the cities and you allow everyone to move into the drug business. We tell them an analysis and we question them. Do you want to also decriminalize domestic abuse because you cannot regulate it? They said they had a weird response as to why this is not the same thing, but not essentially engaging principally. We think they conceded that was a horrible policy from them all in the very first place. And furthermore, they never engaged into our idea that the governments are not good enough in these regions. If they were, they could provide them with better jobs. If these governments were sufficient, they could maybe push for better enforcement, no thank you, for these drugs in the first place. The inability to do this means there are alternatives on state, community, state rehabilitation. All of these are unlikely to work as well. We think under that paradigm, decriminalization only makes the situation worse because you also remove the stigma of drug abuse. Therefore, no thank you, strengthening the cartel's rhetoric even more and making them seem like not an enemy of the state, not a problem, but the only person who is a provider, which concludes the idea that on principle, we stand on a firmer ground on why you should not allow this. But moving on to why you need to ensure that effectiveness of our model is true. The entire premise of this was that the state is failing. Therefore, people essentially turn to the cartels who are dominating their lives for security, for general jobs, for resources, for food. Their burden was to show us why in their world, just because you decriminalize this and you stop the international community from acting, no thank you. The state recovers and ensures all of this is met. They don't do this. Therefore, what happens? You now have a drug cartel controlling the lives of all of these individuals indefinitely. That is an extremely cursed state that they want to establish under their world. But moreover, no thank you. We have already shown to you why you need to give individuals in this extremely state of distress some hope. That is something they never engaged with. After years and years of violence and injustice, things which can never be atoned for anyway, they want to decriminalize drugs. Which means you take away the ray of hope of survival from this extremely toxic life, but everyone who had been a victim of drug abuse, everyone who had been a victim of the drug war lose out, even in terms of getting justice under their world. Because you give in to the drug cartels who has controlled your lives for so long. And as a state, you are completely broken and have zero credibility. Therefore, all of their solutions will never work because you lose faith in the state entirely. Their only analysis here was if you take down the drug cartel leaders, you will not be able to recover again. Notice that the only analysis here was the example of Pablo Escobar. We recognize maybe that did not work, but we could take out the next leader. No thank you. If not, you could take out, essentially you could provide aid as an international community once you take down these leaders to allow recovery for that state. We don't think these alternatives are ruled out under our model. They could work, but you need to take the leader out of violence first. Before progressing to the next conclusion, final information.
Sir, if your plan is to constantly keep on killing leaders or keep on popping up, when do you plan this war and war on drugs will end?
We tell you that the reason why you do have a leader coming up again is because you only kill the leader at that point and not moved on to recovering that society. We can do that under our world because the amount of accountability the community has internationally is significantly greater under our world than they had in their 60-year-old example. Therefore, we think it is possible to ensure this recovery doesn't exist under our world while it does under theirs. But the thing is, for the state to survive, people need to trust it. But what were their alternatives? The first one was that they have other income sources, no responses. An example of Thailand was their only analysis here. Therefore, our analysis still stands. Second, they claim that the only reason why the people are afraid is because the police are extremely bad. They give us an example of Philippines, not an international community acting, but a bad police force acting. We have the accountable international community acting here. Thirdly, they claim that the only reason why these individuals are violent is because they are met with violence. First, they are criminals who run organizations that must be safe from social stigma and need to be protected. They will always militarize. They want to be powerful, they don't want to be weak. So irrespective of that, they can control your lives with violence. And finally, in terms of justice, we show you why you do not allow people to go into slavery. And at that point, you have a moral responsibility to save these individuals. And for the justice of so many lives you have taken over so many years, don't decriminalize drugs and give them all disrespect. We're very proud to oppose.
They talk about better jobs being an alternative to being part of a drug cartel. Understand, this is not Thailand, this is Colombia. They talk about rehabilitation of drug abusers. This is not downtown Detroit, this is Colombia. They have never engaged in the context in which this debate is couched. They've never engaged in instances where international aid is begged for. We tell you these instances preclude you from any of the kinds of policies that their model wants to protect, beyond just decriminalization. All the other ones fail to engage with these concepts and this context. We tell you, we won this debate because we showed you that decriminalization is something we can never accept. Collateral damage in these instances is limited, but in those instances where it does happen, it's justified. And finally, this model does work. So how did we go about doing this? They came up and told us they won't sugarcoat drug abuse and then just said drug abuse is bad. We tell you, understand that throughout my speech and the speech after, we've painted to you a picture of what decriminalization will look like in this world. They never talked about what happens to the people when decriminalization happens. They just talked about the impact of decriminalization on the drug cartel and the drug business. We told you that the world you create once a crippled, destroyed community racked by drug abusers and drug cartels killing them has now no longer a drug cartel but free access to drugs that gives them an escape from this reality. We tell you nearly all of them will take it, nearly all of them will condemn themselves into a life of cocaine and heroin. Then a crippled community becomes one that just lives its life serving its hedonistic pleasures. We tell you this is not a world we envision as a success in their world. Because this was the only model they portrayed, this loses them the debate on that ground to begin with. Because even if our world doesn't change and fix the problem immediately or takes a long time to do it, if the best your world can ever come up with is that, we tell you we won the debate on that ground. Secondly though, we don't concede that. We tell you our world does work. Why is that? We've shown you various analyses as to how these international interventions are held up to higher scrutiny, cannot give themselves to the kinds of collateral damage they keep accusing them of. They are not Duterte, they're the United States that is heavily criticized for any intervention they do. When they do it, they have to be careful about it. We tell you this allows it to have a high level of scrutiny. Whenever their criticisms were twofold. First of all, they will pop up leaders and you will never get rid of the problem completely. We tell you, even if we were to buy that, you decrease the problem significantly. We tell you when Pablo Escobar was killed, it wasn't as if the drug problem in Colombia did not change at all. It was heavily decreased. We tell you this is because it decentralizes the drug trade and allows it to be killed and allows the other leaders to be killed easier, and we allow for rehabilitation, which ensures that this kind of problem does not necessarily come up again. They said it will not work because you don't have community buy-in, because these people serve the drug cartels more than they serve these people. We tell you, you are more likely to listen and you are more likely to help out someone who comes as your savior, someone who your state called in as a savior, rather than the one who raped your mother. We tell you that this is a world where you have to bow down to drug cartels is not one where you have to have gratitude, it's one where you grovel. We tell you in that world you are likely to have community buy-in as well. So our model does work, or even at the worst case has a great capacity to decrease the problems of drug cartels and drug abusers. We tell you if that is our worst case, and their best case is a world of hedonistic pleasure where you are crippled and your education is crippled, your family life is crippled, we tell you we win this debate because our worst case is better even than the best case. Thank you.
I thank the opposition reply and now would like to invite proposition reply speaker to close the debate.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's assume for a moment that this debate is not about places like the Golden Triangle and places like Thailand, but only about Colombia. Because even in the example that they tried to provide, and the only example they provided inside opposition, they've never shown us really how the war on drugs in Colombia worked. Especially when the third opposition speaker verbatim conceded that the war against Pablo Escobar failed and wasn't effective. Because even after decades of trying to militarize and take down these drug cartels, Latin America has still been rife by the very problems of drugs that they want. That's why we think, coming from proposition, maybe it's time to think of a new solution for us to fix the problem. And we have shown you why our solution is far more effective. Two questions to ask in today's debate. First, is it just to declare war on drugs right now? And secondly, is it effective for us to use this form of war on drugs? First, is it just to declare war on drugs? We gave you two clear standards for this. First, on the level of proportionality, to which we heard a misrepresentation and a false comparative coming from opposition. They say it's justified because drug cartels are killing individuals, so the harmless individuals are dying on the ground. We already told you that the reason as to why drug cartels right now are incredibly violent and are doing all the harms that you want to say under your side is not because they inherently did it in the start, but because of the militarization and the declaration of war on drugs that forced them to militarize, that forced them to become more violent. To this point in time, they never showed us why they were inherently violent to begin with already. So we don't think it's proportional for us to kill individuals for the basis of us being able to stop drugs, even if you can see to an extent it might be a problem. But second, we told you that we haven't tried the last resort yet. In third opposition speaker, they also conceded that we have to try the last resort and try as many alternatives as we can. To this point in time, this war on drugs hasn't tried options of things like decriminalization and rehabilitation. Given that they haven't tried these options, why is it justified to enter into war? But secondly, assuming the war itself is justified, they haven't proven to us why it's effective. They keep accusing us of saying that our alternatives are ineffective because decriminalization apparently just means us not doing anything about the drug problem. We don't think this is a right representation for case. Because we told you that the process of decriminalization using strategies like rehabilitation, while we might not actively try to kill these soldiers, these cartels will erode their power significantly over time. What was the analysis that we provided under our maps? We said that when we're able to have things like rehabilitation and community development, we decrease the demand for drugs, making it a less lucrative industry. Therefore, the power, the money that these drug cartels have diminish over time as well. That's how we're able to weaken cartels, and it's not like we're not doing anything about it. We haven't heard a response coming from opposition why these are ineffective, because the only thing they said is we're not going to be doing anything about it. But secondly, even if our alternatives don't work, we have to question whether or not their policy was effective. Because we told you that their analysis they provided was insufficient in so far saying it will neutralize the war on drugs. They said that just because we have international support and the military might of the United States, we're able to now decapitate the leaders we have. We gave you analysis why it's very unlikely for them to track down these leaders because of the intel they have and the fact that these cartels are also militarized. But even if they were able to do so, we said under their side of the House list, even if they're successful in taking down one leader or taking down a community or a drug cartel in that area, they tend to pop up in different areas as well, and they're able to, the problem continues to happen. So all the harms, assuming these drug cartels kill individuals for fun, would exist under their world, and trying to crack down on them doesn't make it better. But the worst part about their problem is, if you start using violence, that's when these cartels become even more violent. So even in the net case where we don't get any benefit from whatsoever, they make it worse under their house when they're able to harm these individuals on the ground. So even if this debate is only about whether or not they are effective, we've shown to you why they aren't effective and why alternatives are better. We're very proud to take this debate. Thanks.